the future is uncertain. Not sometimes, always. No forecast is complete. No plan is immune. No model survives reality untouched. This is why the most powerful financial skill is not prediction. It is preparation. Morgan Housel calls it margin of safety, the deliberate space between what you expect to happen and what you can survive if it doesn't. We love forecasts because they give us comfort. They promise clarity in a messy world. They tell us what will happen next. But history is a graveyard of confident predictions. Markets rise for reasons no one anticipated. They crash for causes no one modeled. The world is shaped by events that never appeared in anyone's spreadsheet. Morgan reminds us, the biggest financial surprises come from what we didn't know could happen. Margin of safety accepts this reality. It doesn't try to outsmart uncertainty. It builds room for error. Margin of safety is oxygen. It allows you to make decisions without panic. It gives you time to think instead of react. It keeps you in the game when others are forced out. In personal finance, margin of safety looks like emergency savings, conservative assumptions, avoiding unnecessary leverage, flexibility in lifestyle. These aren't signs of pessimism. They are signs of respect for reality. A fragile system works only when everything goes right. A resilient system works even when several things go wrong. Morgan observed that many financial failures came from systems optimized for perfection. High leverage, no cash buffer, tight schedules, zero tolerance for error. They looked brilliant until reality intervened. Margin of safety turns fragility into resilience. Optimization tries to squeeze every ounce of performance. Margin of safety sacrifices a little performance to ensure survival. The irony is that survival often produces better long-term results. Those who avoid ruin get to benefit from compounding. Those who optimize too aggressively risk permanent loss. Morgan's message is blunt and liberating. Avoiding ruin matters more than maximizing returns. Buffers reduce stress. When you know you can survive a bad outcome, fear loses its power over your decisions. People with margin of safety make better choices, not because they're smarter, but because they're calmer. Calm allows patience. Patience allows consistency. Consistency allows compounding. Margin of safety quietly improves behavior, and behavior drives results. This concept extends beyond investing. In careers, margin of safety means skills that transfer across industries. In relationships, it means emotional reserves. In health, it means rest and recovery. In business, it means cash reserves and diversified income. Margin of safety is a life philosophy. Don't live at the edge of your capacity. Margin of safety looks inefficient. It feels wasteful. Unused cash earns little. Extra time looks unproductive. Lower leverage appears conservative. But what looks inefficient in good times becomes priceless in bad times. Morgan notes that people who ignore margin of safety often do so because of overconfidence. They believe the future will resemble the recent past. It rarely does. Margin of safety is built on humility. It admits, I could be wrong. I don't know what's coming. I want to survive surprises. This humility is not weakness. It is strength disguised as caution. The world does not reward arrogance for long. It rewards endurance. Margin of safety buys freedom. When you have buffers, you can say no to bad deals, leave toxic environments, wait for better opportunities, take thoughtful risks. Freedom is not about having more options. It's about not being forced into bad ones. Margin of safety is how freedom is protected. Morgan encourages people to define safety in personal terms. Ask yourself, how much volatility can I emotionally handle? How long could I survive without income? What expenses are flexible? Which risks would permanently damage my life if they went wrong? These answers guide how much margin you need. There is no universal formula. There is only what lets you sleep at night. The goal is not to eliminate risk. That is impossible. The goal is to survive risk, long enough for good things to happen. Margin of safety is how you turn uncertainty from a threat into a manageable companion. What are you really trying to buy with money? We explore wealth and freedom. Why the ultimate dividend of money is control over your time, and why being wealthy and being rich are not the same thing. Money promises many things: status, comfort, security, power. But there is only one thing it truly buys when used well: freedom. Not the freedom to impress, not the freedom to consume endlessly, but the freedom to choose how you spend your time, who you spend it with, and what you say no to. Morgan Housel draws a sharp line between two ideas people often confuse: being rich and being wealthy. They look similar from a distance. Up close, they are opposites. Being rich is loud. It shows up as cars, clothes, homes, and holidays. It's what you see. Wealth is quiet. It's the money you don't spend, the time you don't trade, the options you keep. Morgan explains that wealth is what you don't see: the reserves, the flexibility, the independence that never needs to announce itself. A person driving a luxury car may be rich. A person with years of expenses, saved, low obligations, and control over their schedule is wealthy. One buys admiration, the other buys peace. The highest return money can generate is control over your time. Morgan argues that the ability to wake up and decide what you'll do that day, without financial pressure, is the purest form of wealth. This freedom doesn't require extreme riches. It requires alignment between lifestyle and resources. Many high earners lack this freedom because their spending has locked them into obligations. They earn well, but they must keep earning. True wealth removes that requirement. Being rich is easier to measure. It's visible, comparable, and socially rewarded. Wealth is internal. It doesn't show up on social feeds. It doesn't earn applause. Society celebrates spending, not saving. Display, not discipline. Morgan notes that this bias pushes people toward visible success, even when it undermines long-term freedom. It's easier to buy admiration than autonomy. A high-maintenance lifestyle is fragile. Large fixed expenses reduce flexibility. They turn small financial shocks into major crises. They trap people in jobs they no longer enjoy. Morgan observes that the most dangerous thing money can buy is inflexibility. When your lifestyle requires constant income at a certain level, you lose the ability to walk away. Wealth, in contrast, lowers maintenance. It expands choice. It increases resilience. Financial freedom is often misunderstood as early retirement. Morgan reframes it. Freedom is not about stopping work. It's about choosing work. People with freedom often continue working, but on projects they believe in, with people they respect, on schedules they control. Freedom replaces obligation with intention. Status depends on others. Independence depends on yourself. Status requires constant validation. Independence requires preparation. Morgan argues that people who optimize for independence make different choices. They save more. They avoid unnecessary debt. They accept lower short-term rewards for long-term autonomy. Independence is subtle, but it compounds faster than status ever could. Every financial decision is a trade-off between now and later, between appearance and reality. Morgan suggests asking a simple question before big decisions. Will this increase or decrease my control over my time? This question cuts through complexity. It reveals whether a choice builds wealth or merely displays success. Freedom looks different for everyone. For some, it's flexible hours. For others, it's geographic mobility. For others, it's creative independence or time with family. There is no universal definition of wealth, only a personal one. Morgan emphasizes that copying someone else's version of success often leads to regret. The goal is not to be wealthy by someone else's standards. The goal is to be wealthy by yours. Wealth creates calm. When you are not forced into decisions, you think more clearly. When you don't need approval, you act more authentically. When money stops being urgent, life becomes intentional. Morgan notes that calm is a competitive advantage. Calm people make fewer mistakes. They wait for better opportunities. They endure uncertainty without panic. Calm is a sign of real wealth. One of the greatest benefits of wealth is the ability to say no. To bad deals, to toxic relationships, to obligations that drain energy. Saying no protects your time, your focus, and your values. Morgan writes that money's greatest value is not what it lets you buy. It's what it lets you avoid. Most people who achieve true wealth do so quietly. They don't chase trends. They don't broadcast every success. They build margin, patience, and independence over time. Their lives may look ordinary, but their freedom is extraordinary. Being rich is about what others see. Being wealthy is about what you experience. Wealth is the ability to live life on your own terms. And that is the highest return money can offer. If wealth is freedom, the next challenge is protecting it from human nature. Money doesn't just reveal intelligence, it reveals character. It amplifies who we already are, our patience or impatience, our humility or pride, our discipline or ego. And among all the forces that quietly destroy wealth, ego is the most dangerous because it feels like confidence. Morgan Housel observed that many financial mistakes are not analytical errors. They are identity errors, decisions made to protect an image rather than build a future. Ego demands recognition. It wants credit. It wants admiration. But money doesn't reward pride. It rewards consistency. Ego pushes people to take risks they don't need to take, chase returns they don't require, prove intelligence instead of protecting capital. Morgan notes that some of the biggest losses in history happened after success, not before it. People confuse a good outcome with personal brilliance. They forget the role of luck. And that forgetfulness breeds fragility. Problems begin when money becomes identity. When wealth is tied to self-worth, every market movement feels personal. Every loss feels humiliating. Every gain feels like validation. This emotional attachment distorts judgment. Morgan points out that people who build wealth quietly often keep their identity separate from their finances. They don't need to prove anything, and that freedom protects them from reckless decisions. Humans are natural storytellers. We want narratives that explain why things happened. After success, we tell stories about skill. After failure, we tell stories about bad luck. Reality is always a mix of both, but ego edits the script. Morgan warns that convincing stories are often more dangerous than uncertainty. Once you believe your own narrative, you stop questioning assumptions. And when assumptions go unchallenged, risk hides in plain sight. Success lowers vigilance. When something works, we assume it will keep working. We extrapolate recent trends into the future. We grow comfortable. Morgan shows that many investors who failed spectacularly were once very successful. Their downfall was not ignorance, it was overconfidence. They mistook favorable conditions for permanent advantages. Ego whispers, "You've figured it out." Markets reply, "Not yet." Some people would rather be right than wealthy. They cling to opinions. They defend positions. They argue with markets instead of adapting to them. Morgan explains that flexibility is one of the most valuable financial traits. Changing your mind is not weakness. It is survival. The market does not reward stubbornness. It rewards humility. Humility creates margin of safety. It encourages diversification. It limits leverage. It invites second opinions. It keeps you alert to what you don't know. Morgan notes that the most enduring investors assume they can be wrong and structure their lives so being wrong does not destroy them. Humility is not self-doubt. It is self-awareness. One of the hardest lessons in finance is recognizing how much success depends on factors outside your control. Morgan emphasizes that luck plays a larger role than we admit in timing, opportunity, and survival. This doesn't diminish effort. It reframes it. Acknowledging luck reduces arrogance. Reducing arrogance reduces risk. Reducing risk preserves wealth. Public success invites pressure. When others expect you to perform, you may take risks to maintain an image rather than protect reality. Morgan points out that many quiet investors outperform famous ones, not because they're smarter, but because they're free from scrutiny. Privacy can be a competitive advantage. There is power in anonymity. When you stop trying to impress, you start making better decisions. You choose investments that fit your goals, not trends. You design a life aligned with your values, not expectations. Morgan suggests that one of the most liberating financial moves is deciding whose opinion actually matters. Most don't. Healthy financial stories are simple and humble. I don't know what the future holds. I want to stay in the game. I don't need to maximize every outcome. I want to sleep well. These stories don't sound impressive, but they build resilient wealth. Ego makes you feel powerful. Humility makes you powerful. Wealth survives not because of intelligence alone, but because of self-control, adaptability, and respect for uncertainty. The goal is not to be admired. The goal is to endure. If ego and pride can quietly destroy wealth, the final question in this part becomes deeply practical. How do you design a financial life that works even when you're wrong? Morgan Housel's quiet but powerful lesson is this: you don't need to predict what will go wrong. You need to prepare for the fact that something will. This is not pessimism. It is realism, and realism is a form of strength. We underestimate uncertainty because our minds crave order. We prefer clean narratives over messy reality. We assume tomorrow will resemble yesterday, just slightly better. But progress is not smooth. It is punctuated by shocks. Morgan reminds us that the biggest events shaping financial history were rarely forecast accurately. Wars, crises, crashes, technological leaps, pandemics. They arrived from outside the models. The lesson is not to fear these events. It is to design a life that can survive them. Planning assumes control. Preparing assumes surprise. Plans are brittle. Preparation is flexible. A plan says, here's what will happen. Preparation says, no matter what happens, I'll be okay. Morgan argues that too much planning without preparation creates fragility. When reality deviates from the plan, as it always does, panic sets in. Preparation replaces panic with patience. Flexibility is one of the most underrated financial assets. It gives you options when options matter most. It allows you to pivot instead of collapse. It lets you adapt without sacrificing dignity or safety. Flexibility comes from simple choices: keeping expenses lower than income, avoiding commitments that lock you in, building skills that transfer, maintaining liquidity. These choices don't maximize short-term gains. They maximize long-term survival. Perfection is the enemy of endurance. If your financial life only works when everything goes right, it will eventually stop working. Morgan emphasizes that reasonable expectations are a form of risk management. Expect downturns, expect setbacks, expect regret. When these things arrive, and they will, you won't be shocked or forced into bad decisions. Prepared minds stay calm. Calm minds survive. In engineering, redundancy saves lives. Backup systems exist because failures are inevitable. Money works the same way. Extra savings, multiple income streams, insurance, conservative assumptions. Redundancy looks inefficient until it isn't. Morgan explains that many people fail not because they lacked intelligence, but because they had no backup. Redundancy buys time. Time buys solutions. Stress is information. When money decisions keep you awake at night, something is wrong. Not with the market, but with the alignment between your life and your finances. Morgan encourages people to listen to stress rather than suppress it. Stress often signals excessive risk, overextension, or misplaced priorities. Reducing stress is not weakness. It is optimization for longevity. One of the healthiest financial mindsets is accepting that you will be wrong. Wrong about timing. Wrong about opportunities. Wrong about people. Wrong about yourself. The goal is not to eliminate mistakes. It is to make mistakes survivable. Morgan shows that people who expect to be wrong build buffers. People who expect to be right build leverage. One survives, the other eventually breaks. There is a crucial difference between losses you can recover from and losses you can't. Small mistakes are teachers. Big mistakes are erasers. Morgan stresses that avoiding ruin is more important than achieving brilliance. You can recover from modest losses. You cannot recover from permanent damage. Designing your financial life around avoiding ruin, not maximizing upside, is the hallmark of maturity. Prepared people are calm people. When markets panic, prepared people wait. When others rush, they observe. When noise rises, they think clearly. Calm is not natural. It is built through preparation. Morgan notes that calm allows you to act when opportunity appears, and opportunity often appears disguised as chaos. Preparation is not just about money, it's about mindset. Can you endure boredom? Can you tolerate regret? Can you accept looking wrong before being right? Can you wait? These emotional skills determine financial outcomes as much as savings or returns. Morgan reminds us that emotional preparation is the ultimate margin of safety. The best financial plan is not the smartest one. It's the one you can follow when things go wrong. If a strategy collapses under stress, it's too fragile. If a lifestyle breaks under pressure, it's too tight. The goal is not perfection. The goal is sustainability. A financial life you can stick with is one that survives bad years as well as good ones. You don't need certainty. You need resilience. Preparing for a world that can go wrong is the most realistic form of optimism there is. Because when you're prepared, uncertainty loses its power over you. If this perspective is helping you build clarity and calm around money, subscribe to Success Resources Books Insights, where timeless thinking meets real life and wisdom compounds over time. You've now completed part 2. a deep exploration of protection, freedom, humility, and resilience. In Part 3, we shift from defense to direction. We explore optimism, long-term thinking, and how to build a personal money philosophy that lasts a lifetime. This was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, narrated by SR Books Insights. This is more than mindset. It's a mission. Keep seeking, keep growing, keep giving, and together, let's make the world rich again.